Hello everyone, nubkeks here and welcome back to Nub Raids where it's happened already. I've got my samurai top knot ready to go because we have the information on the next fusion, which actually starts on Monday. Very short notice, a bit sooner than I think we were expecting. But yes, next Monday, the 5th of May, there will be a champion fragment event for a new champion, Ishiyama the Immovable. Hopefully I said that at least somewhat right. He is a HP-based damage dealer, with Arena being his prime battleground. Despite having a handful of debuffs in his kit, you can totally ignore accuracy in favor of more offensive stats as long as you bring another debuff champion on your team. He has no need for the attack stat, but his damage will greatly benefit from HP and crit damage instead, so make sure to invest in these stats to maximize damage. Well, let's take a look at him. Let's see if that's actually true. Let's see what we make of his kit. So here he is. He is a Spirit Affinity HP champion. He's legendary from the Shadowkin faction. And yeah, he's got a nice pair of balls. He's got a nice pair of balls. That's what we can say. They're flaming hot. His balls are so hot it looks like they've actually burnt his face. So it happens. It happens to the best of us. Move me over here. Let's take a look at his skill set. We've got a 28% HP in all battles aura. It's decent. I mean, generally usable. It's good. Burning Comet, his A1, attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit transfers a random debuff from this champ to the target. If this champion's under any debuffs when attacked, counterattacks with this skill. I think the final line here makes this pretty cool. Yeah, so double hit, you will remove 2 debuffs. The way that transferring debuffs works is it will just remove the debuff from you regardless, but then the enemy can resist it. Now, actually, let's jump to his passive, because his passive will, I believe, affect this. The passive is the Immovable. Whenever an enemy resists a debuff placed by this champion, the next debuff placed by this champion cannot be resisted. And every debuff placed by him increases his max HP by 3% up to 30. So it's not a very, very powerful scaling, but it is a little bit of scaling. But yes, I think that this, the double hit will basically work with the passive, I think. It's pretty darn cool that he will always counterattack if he's any debuffs. That's nice, which will help to remove them from him and put them back on the enemy. Definitely, a concern for Polymorph in the arena, mind you, and that's sort of a general problem with his A2 as well. A2 Calculated Volley, 4-turn. That goes to a 3-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies. So good for damage to the 3-turn AoE. As a 75, that goes to 100% chance of placing Fear, 25% decreased crit damage, and 30% decreased crit rate on all enemies for 2 turns. And they cannot be resisted by enemies who are already under 2 or more debuffs. So again, for an arena specialist, it does make him somewhat vulnerable to Polymorph, though, of course, Wand of Submission actually works pretty darn well on a HP damage dealer. That's pretty good. It gives you a lot of HP. So great, and we're getting one for free. But would he be good enough to, be worth using your limited Wands of Submission on? I don't know. But yeah, lots of debuffs here. Honestly, decreased crit rate, we don't use it that often, but it's pretty good. It's a nifty debuff for Arena. Obviously, most enemies, it's not going to matter. At least half the enemies you're fighting don't have any crit rate anyway. But any damage dealer, decreased crit rate's actually pretty good, I think. It's rolling the dice, but when that dice roll goes well for you, it works out well. Sort of same thing with Fear. It is rolling the dice. His A3, finish them. 4 goes to a 3-turn cooldown. Attacks one enemy, ignores 25% defense, ignores 50% defense instead if the target is under 2 or more debuffs, places block damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. If this attack kills an enemy, that's pretty darn good, actually. His A3, I think, is really nice. 25% defense ignore is already good. 50% defense ignore is very strong, because you'll probably be building him in lethal plus stone skin, and then have Helm Smasher. So that's, if Helm Smasher procs, that's a 100% defense ignore hit right there, which is extremely strong. And he does bring 3 debuffs. So even if decreased crit damage is perhaps not the most useful thing, he can enable himself somewhat. So yeah, we put all this together. What's the vibe? My vibe on this guy is he seems to me above average, definitely above average. He's actually pretty decent. But it's tough competition, right? being a HP damage dealer focused on arena, you've got very tough competition. Like, are you coming in? Are you going to be going, man, this, whatever, put, where is he? Put old Nice the Shadow Thief, put him in the vault, because here's my new dude. I don't think so. I don't think so. So he's got a lot of competition. Where is he? He's got a lot of competition. That makes it tough. I do think he has some value for newer players. I think the A3 has a lot of potential to hit hard. We'll see what his damage multipliers are. It's hard to make a full judgment yet. But this has the potential to hit hard, especially if you've got some other debuffers in your squad. And 2 turns of block damage is actually pretty legit. That's a lot of survivability. He's probably going to be pretty darn survivable. Being a HP nuker, probably going to be put in 4 pieces of stone skin. And yeah, getting that block damage, it's actually pretty decent. We'll see how hard his AoE hits. I'm a bit worried that his A2 is going to be a bit of a flop damage-wise. There is no ignore defense built in. It doesn't have like a conditional extra hit. They often let you hit pretty hard. It seems like it's just a flat AoE nuke. It might be a bit weak. And yeah, you can do some irresistible debuffs, but it might be a bit clunky. I don't know. I feel like he's decent, but probably not crazy. Certainly if you are a newer player and you're lacking arena nukers, this guy could actually be great. And if you're lacking Shadowkin, this guy could be great. Shadowkin, I have to say, we have to consider Faction Wars Hard is coming up. Shadowkin's a pretty squishy faction. And this guy, he does actually, I think he goes pretty well. He's giving you access to some fears. Decreased crit rate could actually be kind of nice to just make you a bit more survivable. He himself will be really survivable. Bit of crowd control. He might actually make a pretty big difference getting through the faction and being able to do it well. So I think he's not too bad for that. I think newer players in particular do struggle with Shadowkin. But yeah, for a late game player, for an end game player, definitely a bit of a hard sell. I would say, again, bearing in mind hard mode Faction Wars is coming up soon, he might be useful for that. Will we get info on hard mode Faction Wars before this fusion goes live? At this point, I'd say probably not. So it's a bit of a tough sell. He is a fragment fusion. We've seen that. A fragment event. They are generally the easiest fusions. So it's a bit of a toss-up. I think for an early mid-game player with few Shadowkin, if it's an easier fusion, it's probably worth grabbing. If you're a late-game player, he might be worth it if you think he will help you for Shadowkin hard mode Faction Wars. If there's a sliver of a chance, it's probably worth grabbing him, just if that will let you get to those better rewards a bit faster. But he's probably not essential. And also, actually, this is I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but obviously, yeah, I definitely should have mentioned this earlier. I think one of the big things that affects going for fusions now in 2025 is we now have pretty much always events for souls for champions, which are massively expensive events, of course, basically equal almost to doing another fusion that really up the power of your champion. Now, those souls, for example, Mad Hatter, I think one of the best fusions of this year. I think he was so underrated. Mad Hatter, you don't need a soul. The soul is nice, but I mean, you can get most of his value without a soul. It's fine. A champion like this, a damage dealer, it's really tough to make them feel good if you don't have their soul. Definitely if you're later game. Like, the reality is, you've got to be, the champion has to be, let's be honest, pretty much just overpowered to be able to compete without a soul against a champion that's good, that you have already, that has like a 4-star soul, and they're getting bonus HP, attack, or defense, whichever stat, and they're getting that bonus crit damage. You just get so many stats and so much benefit from a soul. It's really tough to compete without one. And I feel that, yeah, that's just a lot of pressure on a damage dealer. You know, if I'm coming into this as a late game player, not only do I have to get the fusion to use him, but really for him to actually feel good as a damage dealer in arena, you're not going to use him with no soul. I mean, at least as a HP damage dealer, a 1-star soul is given the HP for damage. It's okay, but honestly, it's far from ideal. And yeah, I don't know. Are you going to bench your characters? I mean, it's even a good question to ask. If I look at my HP damage dealers just in general, would I use them if they didn't have a soul? And honestly, probably not. Like my HP damage for Arena, I use Empress. But Empress is kind of exceptionally good. I'll be honest. Would I use Frolny in Arena if he didn't have a soul? No. Would I use Fatalis without a soul? No. I mean, even White King Narcisse, who's well known for being great, would I use him in Arena without the soul? Probably not. You know, I feel like he kind of needs it. And I suspect that's going to be true of this guy as well. So yeah, it could be, even though it's likely to be an easier fusion event, it could be very expensive. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on it. I feel like he's definitely not a must do, but for a chunk of players, he could actually have pretty decent value. We will see what his damage multipliers are when we actually test him to see. I mean, who knows? Maybe he absolutely freaking claps and he's super good. Maybe not. Something else to consider as well from that more budget perspective is, I mean, let's say you don't have Ninja or like Harima or Tetsuya, like you don't have any of the big, or Onryo, you don't have any of the big hitters from this faction. He might be okay with Mikage. How good is his A1? We'll have to test that and find out as well, because that could maybe be a decent, like, you know, budget combo for people. I would not expect him to be particular. The decreased crit rate's actually quite nice, and the fear, those are actually kind of nice for Chimera. It's actually not bad. Not bad, and they'll be irresistible because you have the debuffs out on Chimera. It's actually okay. The decrease Chimera's got a lot of crit rate. It's not bad. So it'd be okay there. I certainly don't think that scaling up to 30% max HP is going to put him anywhere close to, you know, Ninja or Harima that are scaling up to 100% attack or defense, and with Ninja's case, a bit of crit damage as well. Not going to be on those levels, but could be a decent option. There you go. Yeah, that's my thoughts on him. Ishiyama the Immovable. Is he Ishiyama the mid? Maybe. Like I said, my initial thoughts are this guy looks a bit above average, but likely not broken. But we have to test him more because he's a damage dealer. And big caveat, damage dealers, I think probably the most reliant on souls out of any champion, because you're competing against your other damage dealers who do have souls, and that just pushes them so far ahead. There we go. Let me know what you think about him. Are you going to go for this fusion? I'll see you next time. Goodbye.